Hello, Watem here and welcome back to some more Higurashi When They Cry. Let's continue. Give me a moment. There we go. There's a whole list of chores to do. I need to clean the windows so the room will be bright. What else? 2 weeks pass quickly while we busy ourselves getting things done. What a wonderful 2 weeks it is. I can finally feel that I'm actually doing something to help my grandfather with his research. I hope the day of the meeting will be a memorable one for my grandfather. I'm guessing it's going to be memorable, but in a very bad way. I hope that day will be a beautiful and clear one. Just as I wished, the day is beautiful. Evening. My grandfather, having dressed for me, paced around his study nervously. I'm also in a beautiful dress. I've only worn it once before, at my piano recital. But I'm not nervous like my grandfather. This silly nervousness actually relaxes me. Are they here yet? Grandfather looked out the window. Then a black car stopped in front of a gate. Back then, a car was a luxury item. I don't think I had even one classmate whose family owned a car. So it only makes sense that the men coming out of the car looked respectable. Grandfather and I ran out to welcome them.
ようこそおいでくださいました。高野と申します。今日は本当にようこそ。
お召し物をお預かりします。
I greeted them, and filled with the role we decided ahead of time. And my being relaxed by my grandfather's silliness ended at that point. Both my grandfather and I were stiff with anxiety as we greeted them now that the moment was here.
はじめまして先生。そしてはじめましてお嬢さん。いえ、お孫さんですかな？
孫です。みよ、ご挨拶なさい。
はじめまして。高野美代と申します。
賢そうな子ですね。本日は小泉先生の代理で参りました。小泉先生は急な用事が入ってしまい、本日は出席をすることができなくなっ、そのことを大変残念がっておりました。
そうですか。それは残念です。
The person who set up everything isn't here. My grandfather even had his treasured wine ready, just as they promised 2 weeks ago.
皆さん、ご紹介いたします。こちらは高野一二先生です。高野先生はかつて軍部の貿易研究所におられ、伝染病予防分野の第一人者として活躍されておりました。
He made many advances in developing synthetic food and synthetic alcohol as measures against malnutrition and ration shortages. Again, because it's Higurashi, the first thing that comes to my mind with synthetic food is the was it the cannibalism thing? The human meat cans? Yeah.
よろしく。
はじめまして。
お邪魔いたします。
The men are even older than my grandfather. They take off their hats one at a time to greet him. Their beards, expensive-looking canes, and glasses tell me they are very high up in this society. Grandfather bows to each one of them.
それでは皆さん、どうぞ書斎へ。誇り臭い場所で大変恐縮です。どうぞこちらへ。みよ、皆さんにお茶の準備を。
はい。
I wasn't nervous at all earlier, but now I think I'm the most nervous one. I'm not the one making the presentation. and I'm not the one being evaluated, so it's ridiculous that I'm feeling so nervous. I don't know if I should use that as my excuse. But I was so nervous that I knocked over the thermos I had filled to the brim with hot water, and ruined the black tea I'd chosen specifically for this day. I apologized to my grandfather and started to boil water again. Just need enough for the guests. By the time I had cups of tea and cookies ready, grandfather's presentation was at its key part.
血管もしくはリンパ管を破って脊髄へ侵入し、髄液を通って脳内に至るものと思われます。また死後の解剖結果、脳炎を起こしたものを複数件確認しています。類似の症状をもたらすウイルスは過去の事例を紐解いても数種類あり、その中でも代表的なものは
So, how does it get into the blood or the lymph? It's getting to the spinal cord, okay, yeah. Grandfather said, walking between samples in formalin jars and pointing to several as he gave his explanation. There are over 100 formalin jars in here with parts of brains in them. They were all very dusty, so I spent a few days cleaning them. I'm rather proud to see the sparkling jars all lined up like this.
ただし、これらのウイルスが引き起こす症状は多岐にわたります。
I mean... Wait. Okay. On the other hand, symptoms of Hinazawa syndrome are very specific to that disease.
それが喉を自らかきむしる自傷行為だとおっしゃるのですね。
Well, on the other hand, it does give, like, derangement and... maybe it gives headaches, not sure.
さようです。これについては死亡直前を知る兵士たちの目撃情報から分かっています。この自傷行為はこれまでに知られてきたどのような病状にもありません。
Yeah, consistently like that is also odd. Like, self-harm could be like something, but like you wouldn't expect it to always follow the exact same type.
ひなみ沢症候群独自のものです。また末期患者にしか見られない行為であることから、これは一部の感染症に見られるのと同じエクソダスであると考えられます。感染者の体内で十分に成長し、幼虫を繁殖させた後、ウイルスは体外へ脱出し、次なる感染者を探すのです。
So I wondered if they, in the like urgent cases, do they just remain dormant or something, or is it just for for eggs rather? That stay dormant until the conditions are right for them to hatch or something? Otherwise, not otherwise. On another note, are humans their whole life cycle, or do they have other animals as part of their life cycles? It's fairly common for like parasites to have like different animals in their life cycles. So one which I've talked about before, I've forgotten what it's called, but in one part of its life cycle it lives in like mice, and then in another part it lives in cat's guts, or another one where it lives in ants, and then at the next stage of its life cycle it lives inside of cow guts.
ではその血液にはウイルスもしくは陽性が満たされているわけであり、
And clawing out the throat doesn't. Not sure if that's really the most effective means of getting out the body. Anyway.
貿易の知識のない現地の兵士がそれに触れていたならば、彼らも感染していた可能性があるわけです。
Yeah, that's the other thing. Even if it gets out, then the fact that it doesn't then infect other humans suggests that maybe there's another animal in its life cycle. But then, if leaving the region is part of what triggers it, then that doesn't quite fit in either, because then you don't necessarily have the animal which would be in the next part of the life cycle. Unless for some reason that animal is specifically not in this area and so it has to leave to be able to do it, but then that just causes other issues in trying to continue its life cycle. Another thing, like the whole Rika queen thing, the queen parasite and its life cycle. Yeah, continuing on.
にもかかわらず、ひなみ沢出身者以外の兵士に感染例がないことをどうお考えですか？
これについては潜伏期間その他を疑ったのですが、ひなみ沢という地域だけにまた辞書で詳しく取り上げておりますが、ひなみ沢の古い土着の信仰から考え、
ありえないですよ、高野先生。ウイルスに社会性があるなど聞いたこともない。
いえ、ですからこれこそがひなみ沢症候群の画期的な発見の一つでありまして。
The elderly gentlemen mumbled to each other while pointing at the data. With that, I finally realized things aren't going too well.
高野先生のご考説を賜りながら、先の資料を拝見させていただきました。まず申し上げて、脳内に潜伏したウイルスが人間の思想をコントロールするなど、全くもってありえないことです。人間の思考は極めて高度な神の芸術ともいえる脳で作られます。また思想というものは人間の思考の中でも非常に上位のものであり、現在の地球上においては人間にのみ許された高度な能力です。
So, I definitely feel like it should have been a kind of like a peer review process, and bureaucrats probably aren't really the right job to be giving a peer review. Oh well. So, like, should be going over and basically asking, well, you haven't asked this question, or you haven't answered this question with the data and all, and questioning methods and stuff, rather than like this. Oops.
それに介在するウイルスがいるなど考えられませんよ。同感です。思想とはつまり個より全体を優先した考え方とも言えます。
I agree that rather than simply impossible, unlikely for parasites to control human minds, but there I disagree with their reasoning. Their reasoning isn't solid enough. Yes.
つまり社会性を維持する最前提条件なわけですな。それが遺伝子を残すこと以上の欲求を持たないウイルスごときに宿るわけがない。
Well, if you want to go that direction, then that's the same with humans and basically every other animal. Yeah. Wrong button again.
生物学的にも言ってウイルス性の微細な生命体に社会性、新社会性が発見されたことは一度たりともありません。
So, yeah, not quite the same, but with the example which I gave earlier with ants, a parasite living in ants and then living in cow guts. So it's basically a collection of these parasites. One of them makes its way to the neuron, like the quote-unquote brain. It's more like a small cluster of neurons of the ant, and connects itself there. So that it at the start of the day, the ant climbs up to like the tallest grass that you can find, climbs up to the top, and then just bites into it, so that it can hope that a cow will happen to eat it as it eats the grass, and so the rest of the parasites will end up in the cow gut. Meanwhile, the singular parasite which attaches itself to the neurons of the ant won't get to actually pass on. So it will die with the ant rather than actually being able to continue its life cycle. So in that way, it's kind of social, but not exactly. But yeah.
しかし脳内の生命体が宿主の行動に干渉するケースは非常に多く報告されており、
高野先生は一つ誤解をされていますな。ウイルスが宿主の行動を支配する原理は常に生殖繁殖のためという極めて原始的理念に基づくものだけです。
Even in the example used before, of a rat infected with Toxoplasma gondii, yes, losing its aversion to cats. The altered behavior is simply a means to let their host be eaten by a better host, or in order to change hosts.
ハリガネムシに寄生されたバッタの受水自殺がいい例ですな。ハリガネムシは十分に成長すると水生となります。その際、宿主であるバッタを水辺へ誘導して溺死させ、その体内から水中へ脱出する。
その通りです。私はひなみ沢症候群における自殺的な喉のかきむしりもそれに当たると考えまして。
For example, guinea worms escape the body by having the host scratch the affected area.
そうです。すべてのウイルスの目的は繁殖のため。そんな存在が神の芸術ともいえる脳に潜伏し、いやいや、潜伏すること自体は別におかしいことではない。寄生し、人間の思想に影響を及ぼすなんて、はっきり申し上げて妄言です。
Not necessarily. So, to give an example of adjacently related kind of thing. So, there's a study which shows like you can determine various factors for heart conditions just by looking at pictures of eyes. Where was I going with that? Give me a second. Right, so like they're able to tell quite well. Forget the exact accuracy, but from memory, it was fairly high. Of like the state of someone's, general state of someone's heart from pictures of their eyes with a like neural network, I think it was. Like with artificial intelligence stuff. Anyway, but it's these very subtle things which you wouldn't necessarily notice if you're like, even if you're looking for it, but a computer will notice just the slightest difference, like could be less than 1%, but as long as it's statistically significant, it can show up. In the same way, if somehow influencing humans was to somehow increase its rate of passing on its genes, even if it's by just an increase of 0.01%, that could still have an impact, especially over long periods of time.
いや、危険思想と言ってもいい。
There's like other mathematics and stuff with that. And I'm having trouble thinking up concrete examples, but yeah.
ひなみ沢という村が閉鎖的文化から独自の信仰を生み出したこと自体はそう不思議には思いません。日本各地に散見するよくあるケースです。だとしたら日本中のそれらの文化は全てウイルスによるものなのですか？それらは文化的なものであってひなみ沢の件に限ってはウイルスによるもの。
And then there's also the issue of like correlation not equal causation. So you might think that A causes B, but in reality it's B causes A, or C causes A and B, or it's just pure coincidence. And A and B aren't actually related. But yeah.
その区別をどう立証されたのですか？
いえ。ですから現地で死亡したひなみ沢出身兵士の解剖の結果からそうだと信じるに足るさまざまな。
失礼だが高野先生、信じるに足る臨床データだと語るには少々先生の収集されたケースは少なすぎます。
Well, he should have a p-value and be able to tell if it's statistically significant. So rather than saying that you've got enough case studies to call it clinical data, check to see if it's statistically significant. Although fair enough for like neurological studies, it can be hard to get a large number of case studies, so it's harder to get something that's statistically significant.
しかもご自身で言われたように戦場という異常な状況下の話です。
ですから次の章で説明しますように、ひなみ沢症候群は疑心暗鬼と緊張、ストレスなどによる微妙なバランスが崩壊した時に、
喉をかきむしるという特徴的かつ異常な自傷行為が複数件あったならば、何かの共通性があるに違いないと疑われるのもユニークかとは思います。
I don't think it's a unique approach to suspect some commonality if there's several cases of the same bizarre self-mutilation.
ですが、だからこそ当てにならないのですよ。戦地という異常な状況下でたまたまレアなケースが重なっただけのことなんです。高野先生は重なった偶然を見てゲシュタルト的な構成主義にとらわれ法則性を見つけたように
そうでないことを証明するにはひなみ沢症候群の感染者に対する膨大な臨床データが必要です。ですが倫理的に考えてこりゃ立証は不可能でしょう。
出身者がたたりだと了解する行為はどちらかというと文化依存症候群の範疇です。それに対しウイルスによる意識支配を重ねられることは、失礼だが高野先生はユニークなひなみ沢の信仰に浸水し、その結果ご自身が 文化依存症候群に取り込まれてしまっているのではないかと考えます。いえいえ、神秘的分野を研究する人間にはよくあり得ることですよ。我々も日々気をつけています。
The more they talk, the paler my grandfather's face becomes. And I was just stunned myself. I've never heard of parasites like that. That's impossible. It was just a coincidence and there isn't enough data. Talk goes on, and every time my grandfather says something, they dismiss it like that. Before he knew it, my grandfather could only hold his silence before their criticisms.
ただ、どんな発見も最初は理解されないものです。高野先生の研究もそのうちの一つでないかと考えます。当時、どんなにバカバカしいと思われていた研究でも、その後、真実が解き明かされ、評価を。
私は皆さんに比べれば素人です。個人の研究家に過ぎず、一流大の出でもなければ学閥にも属していません。もちろん権威や研究所へのコネクションもありません。故に個人の研究ではこの程度のことまでしか調べられないのです。果たしてひなみ沢症候群が真実なのか、それとも皆さんがおっしゃられるように私の妄想に過ぎないのか、それを確かめるためにお力添えをいただくことはできませんでしょうか。
もちろんこれが世紀の大発見になるならば一大センセーションを巻き起こすでしょう。何しろ人間の文化や思想は全てナノ単位の脳内生命体の意志によるもので、前頭葉は彼らを住まわせるだけの場所に過ぎないという。
ひなみ沢症候群が存在し、その感染者が感染によってそのお社様信仰というものに組み込まれることがもし立証できたなら、地球上に存在する全ての宗教、いや文化国境さえもウイルスで説明できるかもしれないんですからな。
No. No, you just explain it for this one case.
その話の壮大さはとてもユニークです。高野先生は我々のような人間にひっそりと論文を読ませるより、それで本を書かれて一般大衆に発表された方がよろしいでしょうな。
Grandfather looks at the ground, his fist trembling a little. But their words are far too cruel. I don't know anything about academics. I'm just a little girl. I don't know exactly what they're talking about, but Grandfather worked so hard by himself until today. But to prove his research and delve further into it, he needs sponsors. Yet those sponsors are casting him away, calling his research a delusion. That's outrageous. I'm asking which came first, the chicken or the egg. Well, eggs came first. Besides, if his research was at the level those cheeky men want to see, he wouldn't need their help. But they're saying that they can't help him unless they see some results that are beyond the level of private research. In any field, doesn't research always start out with just a little idea? If you can prove its existence beforehand, then what's the point of researching it to begin with? If a wild idea can't be the subject of research, how did we gain any knowledge at all? But never mind that. When Mr. Koizumi came 2 weeks ago, didn't he say that they were really interested in his research? Perhaps Koizumi himself is, but higher-ups aren't allowing it, and that's why he isn't allowed to be in this meeting. What's going on? This is the complete opposite of what he said.
はい。非常に興味深い研究だと思っております。脳はまだまだ未知の領域です。
この高野氏の論文は非常にユニークです。特に優生学的見地からは無視できないものが感じられます。
人は神の子などでは断じてない。人も進化の洗礼を受けた動物に過ぎません。ならばダーウィンに従い、各地の環境に応じて進化には差が出てくる。つまり人類にはすでに優劣があるのです。国家としていかに優秀な血統を守り、より良い遺伝子を未来に残せるか、これを国策として掲げ研究せねば。
高野氏の研究は単なる感染症の域を超えるだけのポテンシャルを秘めていると言えるでしょうな。
次世代に残すべきでない劣悪な人間が、もし遺伝子によるものでなく感染症によるものであると解明できたなら、外科的手段によって構成が可能だということになる。
I am just shaking my head in disappointment at their silliness.
結果、我が国は未来に素晴らしい人間を残すことができるでしょう。
Their ridiculousness.
優生学的見地から高野氏の研究は早急に取り組まれるべきです。
これは世紀の大発見になる可能性がありますぞ。
Yes. What is superior, an apple or an orange? Oh, would you look at that? They're just different.
もし感染症疾患と個人の資質の因果関係が立証できれば、ノーベル賞どころでは済まんでしょうな。
小泉先生、この度の貴重な機会に深く感謝いたします。
Okay, so I'll end it here on these idiots, I guess. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know any feedback you have in the comments. And until next time, see ya.